Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live stream. Our guest today is Stacey Klein, who is the Republican candidate for Wisconsin State Senate District 32. Stacey, how are you?
I am good. How are you doing?
I am doing well. Thank you for coming. I know you have a very busy schedule with all the campaign stops that you have to do and be out and about meeting people. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and to share your views. I'm going to obviously ask you a series of questions, and we're going to discuss your campaign and your experience and your goals and priorities. So I'm looking forward to it.
That's good. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So for the viewers, I want to thank you all for joining, those who are tuning in to watch live. And obviously, there are always others who watch, who, for whatever reason, are not able to join. They'll watch this through the replay. It's going to be available on my channel, this video. And I would encourage people to ask questions. You can just write the questions in the live chat window. So I'll be monitoring that as we speak. And so we can go right into the discussion today. But before that, I'm going to introduce Stacey Klein to the viewers who are watching at home. So Stacey was raised on a farm in western Wisconsin, graduated from Carthage College in Kenosha, which is in southeast Wisconsin, and returned to Trempealeau County. And Stacey serves on a as a county board supervisor. And Stacey has served on committees for her local school district. And Stacey lives in Trempealeau with her husband and daughter. And Stacey is running for Wisconsin State Senate to serve as a strong voice for Western Wisconsin. So with that, welcome, Stacey. And yeah, and we're gonna start with, basically, I'm gonna ask you, tell us more about yourself, your background, and anything that you want to share about your family and experience.
Sure. Yeah. Well, the farm that I grew up on, I believe that was established in the 1850s. So that's been around quite a while. And it's still in the family. We don't farm anymore. Unfortunately, we had to sell the cows when I was 14. And that was just, the nature of the market, what was going on at that time. But yeah, I grew up with a lot of people that grew up on dairy farms. My husband grew up on a dairy farm. I'm the oldest of four kids. All three of my siblings serve in the military. So we're very geared towards service. And yeah, I double majored in music and exercise sports science. Sometimes people find that's interesting, but I was one of those people that felt that I was told I had to go to college to make something out of myself, and started with a music degree, got too far into it, realized that's not what I wanted to do, and exercise sports
Mhm.
science. But since then, I've had a couple different types of jobs, and then the last dozen years or so, I've worked in financial services, helping people learn about money. And it was nice to come back to the Trempealeau area. Trempealeau has always been like my second hometown because I went to Arcadia High School. So it's just a great place to be raising my daughter and then have so many family and friends around. And then it's been nice to get involved locally. My husband also serves on our town board right now. We will be moving to the next municipality over in the next month or so, but he got elected to our church council, so he'll be busy with something else now.
So you are both elected officials.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Well, thank you for that. It's tough whether you are on a village board, county board, town board. Those positions are not easy. There are so many issues that are coming in front of you, and tough decisions that have to be made, especially in an economy like this. So you definitely have the experience of being an elected official. So that's something that is wonderful as you're running for state senate. So I'm going to be asking you more questions about that, obviously, about your campaign. But tell us something about Trempealeau County.
Sure. So it's right in the heart of the Driftless region here on the west side of the state. Some more unique things, like I live right next to Perot State Park, so you can hike and get right up above the river. It's a gorgeous view. And of course, I've been traveling all over Wisconsin since last summer, until I switched to this race.
Mhm.
And there's so many beautiful places. But one place I encourage people to visit is in Arcadia. It's Soldiers Walk or Memorial Park. So the owners of Ashley Furniture have done a really great job over the last, well, it's 2, 3 decades now, putting together, and it's an entire timeline. It's a walkway, and it's got monuments. It's almost like a mini Washington D.C. So if you're ever on this side of the state, I definitely get out there and take a look at that, because, and especially if you haven't been out to Washington D.C. and I mean, that's just, it's mesmerizing, and I mean, historic to be out there to see that, but you get a taste of it here on a smaller level, and it's really neat that we have that right here.
That's wonderful. Thanks for mentioning that. I know on my channel I have viewers from out of state, and in past videos I've encouraged them to visit Wisconsin if they have not done so already, and I've highlighted places where they could visit
Oh, no.
when they come to Wisconsin. So thank you for mentioning that about Trempealeau County. So let me ask you, how long have you been a member of the county board?
This is my second term, so I started in April of 2022.
Okay. And what made you run for county board? What prompted you to run for that office?
So initially, coming out of COVID, we started to get more involved with our school district. My daughter and I actually spoke at the same meeting. My daughter spoke about mass. She was 7 at the time, but I'd been looking for an opportunity to get more involved, and so initially I wanted to run for school board. And then the way our district is set up, the seat where I live wasn't going to be available, and then
Mm,
we had a number of people taking a look at, because our county was the county lines were redone for that election. So I had some people reach out to me about running for county board, and I'm glad I did it, because it's a fit that I just didn't anticipate. I really like the work. I think between my husband and I being, in local government, we really see how there's such a lack of civics education throughout our country.
mhm.
There's so much that we didn't know, which level of government takes care of what. So we've been able to learn a lot through that process, and then my daughter's going to have a super civics education because of it.
Yeah. So, what experiences have you gathered? You know, things that you've learned. You've already shared a little bit, but tell us more about like being on the county board. What are the issues that you encountered, and what kind of problems did you have to solve?
Yeah, well, probably one of the biggest issues for local government is just staying within that tax levy. Wisconsin has some of the most strict tax levy limits, and the funding from the state for local government had been stagnant since the 80s. That's actually part of the county ambassador program, and we would go talk to our legislators about what else could be done.
Hmm.
So the state legislatures passed the shared revenue bill last year, which was a tremendous thing for local governments. But I see it as just a really good step in the right direction,
Hmm.
because and especially now I'm traveling to so many different municipalities and seeing the dynamics, just the different budgets that they have to work with, and how much they're doing with so little at times. So yeah, finding ways to take care of what needs to be done by the local government and stay in that
Hmm.
levy is probably the most difficult. But more so with the county board, one of the committees I'm on is the land use and land management committee. So I get to deal with zoning, and that gets into some interesting issues, because you think of this as my property, and it's my property. I should be able to do what I want with it. Well, it's still within, comprehensive plans for the municipality and then the county. So if you want to switch your zoning to something else, you still have to get it approved. So I know with me, or for in my mind, sometimes that gets to be a little bit of a wrestling match, that, well, this person should be able to do that, but then how does that affect their neighbors and their entire community? So it, it's areas that I hadn't put much thought into in the past, and
Hmm.
interesting to be able to learn, and then also see how each county operates a little differently too.
Yeah, yeah. Lots of issues that village, town, and city and county governments have to deal with. So I think there's always something that you can learn from
Mhm.
every day.
Yep.
So now you're running for state senate. Let's talk about that. Why did you decide to run for state senate?
Well, I know in the past, as I've gone along with my, my early career here with the county board, and especially when I've been lobbying down at the state, that's something that I've looked at, for the future. Where else could I serve and help my communities? And before the maps were redrawn, this in the last few months here, I was kind of locked out. Where I was, we have a really good assembly rep, and then we knew who was going to be running for state senate the next time around. So I had a group approach me last August about running for U.S. Senate, which at first, when they said that, I thought they were joking because that's quite the undertaking for someone that virtually no name recognition and not a whole lot behind me. When you talk about what's necessary for a large race like that. So my husband and I discussed it. We said, "Hey, let's do this." I'll get to meet a ton. I got to meet a ton of great people around the state, build a really great network, see parts of the state I probably never would have visited had I not had this opportunity. And then once the maps were redrawn, the new district lines actually come right through my county board district. So now
Mm,
Trolo County, instead of having just one assembly rep, one state senate rep, we actually have three. So it changed our county quite a bit, but we saw the opportunity where Western Wisconsin could have some much better representation in the state senate, and
mhm,
so we decided to make the switch.
yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And now my question is going to be about the district in which you're running, the 32nd Senate district. So tell us more about the district. And you already mentioned redistricting, so I do want to ask about that. Um, how has redistricting impacted the map in terms of, likely, Democrat votes, Republican votes? I mean, how has the district shifted? And just tell us about the impact of redistricting and
Mhm.
and the district in general now.
Sure. So for District 32, I guess maybe the biggest shift you'd see is that it cut off the lower part of the district, which was Crawford County, and then now it comes up into Trempealeau County. As
Hmm.
far as looking at numbers, when we look at Republican and Democrat votes, it's pretty much the same because you have La Crosse, the city of La Crosse, smack dab in the middle. So that, excuse me, tends to have the district lean a little bit Democrat. But I have really good name recognition here in Trumbull County, so I think that's to our advantage. We're
Hmm.
also finding, as I've been traveling to other municipalities, especially the ones more so on the outskirts, that they're craving a representative that will really focus on communication. So I think the change in maps, even though the numbers on paper from previous elections may look like they still lean a little bit more blue, I think there's a lot more conservatives than we realize in the area.
Yeah. Okay. So, if you are elected to office, what would your priorities be?
So I mentioned communication. That's one thing
Hmm.
I'm finding out there with town boards, and I've municipalities. There's 69 in the district, and I've been to 24 of them so far. So they're really looking for someone that would communicate. I mean, I had somebody flat out ask me if I would call them back or email them back, and that's one of my pet peeves to make sure
Yeah.
that people are getting responses. So building those intergovernmental relationships. And finding out exactly what the local governments need, because that's so much of what is done at the state level. And then that communication to make sure so that when legislation is passed, that we're encountering and discussing those hypotheticals and things that could happen, before the legislation goes through, and then it's almost too late to try to figure these things out. But also we have a multi-billion-dollar surplus sitting at the state, so beyond our budget, the revenue has exceeded that by several $billion, and it's expected to grow. So I know that we're in a situation where we're going to have Governor Evers for another couple of years after this election. But looking at how we can get tax relief passed. There's been multiple tax relief bills that came through. Senator Paff, who is the incumbent in my district right now, voted against almost all of those.
Mm,
And the ones that were passed were vetoed by the governor. So finding ways that we can come together, both as Republicans and Democrats, that we can get money back to the people, the taxpayers, especially when we're in a time where people just can't even afford to live. I know I myself just dread going to the grocery store now because I don't want to pay those prices, and it's hard to walk away knowing you spent so much and
Mhm.
didn't get nearly as much as before. So yeah, and then along with that, looking for ways that we keep more money at the local level because that's where the money's most efficiently and effectively spent. And even a meeting I was at recently, they were talking about keeping local control, and I can see where many people throughout the district would really value that.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned some really important points. You talked about communication, which is so important because constituents, when they call their elected representatives, whether it's state senate, state assembly, Congress, they expect to hear back. They expect a response, and so that's really something that that's important, and you've highlighted that, and I hope that more and more voters in the district get to hear from you and to learn that you're going to be focusing on that. So that's important. You talked about taxes. Obviously, the lower the taxes are, that means people get to keep more of their money, and that's a good thing. So these are all wonderful things that you've mentioned. So I appreciate that. Um, I see on social media you're going to different meetings, village board and town board, and maybe towns association meetings. Also, maybe you've been to. Um, those are all great places where you can meet with constituents and other elected officials, and hear from them about what their concerns are, what their priorities are. So let me ask you now, as you are traveling and as you are going to events, what are you hearing from voters? What are the top concerns that people have?
Well, the biggest, like I mentioned, is there's a lot of people right now that are just struggling to live. There's people that are working 2, 3 jobs,
Mhm.
just trying to make ends meet. So looking at where government doesn't have to be everywhere. We can scale it back in some places,
Mhm.
be more mindful of our spending. But then, especially, I mean, we have our budget that's been in place, and we've collected more revenue than what's needed. So, sending that back to the taxpayers in some form. So just being able to live and paying for what we need right now is one of the bigger things. When I get out to the municipalities, the big things there are funding for roads. That was another item that we were lobbying for at the state for our general transportation aids. There's different programs like LRIPs and ARIPs that focus in on certain kinds of municipal roads to help or to assist with fixing those up. That was shot down. I
Mhm.
believe by the governor. So, and then also broadband, depending on which area you're in. There are some areas, and we really saw that come through during COVID. I
Mhm.
mean, think of how many kids had to be on video conference or utilizing the internet in order to be still going to school, and how many places do not have sufficient internet. So we need to treat that just like electricity, like that type of utility, and get that in place. Um, but I do come across some of the more contentious issues. I know I'm a mom to a daughter. She's 10, and I'm completely against males in female sports. That would set us back 50 years. And I think of when I was a high school athlete, and I can't even fathom the idea of fighting, for all 4 years. You get to your senior year, and you're ready to go crush it, and then there's a male that identifies as a female and comes in and just takes everything away.
Mhm.
And that's not protecting female rights. So there's a lot of people that resonate with that as well. So I would say those are the top things that I'm hearing, and of course some of them I do bring up just to find out where people stand on those as well. But again, just on a consistent basis, I'm finding that the way I would vote is much more in line with Western Wisconsin as opposed to who's currently in office.
Okay. Do you hear about drug problems and growing crimes? Do you hear about these issues?
It depends on where you go. Yeah, mostly in my district, it would be the city of La Crosse. There's a large homeless problem. Also, we see uh, different drugs kind of shifting in and out. I know even years ago, I used to be part of the Women's Alliance of La Crosse, and I
Hmm.
remember attending one of the meetings where the mayor of La Crosse came in and spoke. And so it was asked, what's going on with the drug problem, and that's what they said. It seems like as soon as they start to get the handle on whatever drug is the drug of choice, then another one pops up and turns into the major issue. So throughout the district, what we're seeing it's mainly the city of La Crosse. So then that could be dealing more with the city and then the county as well.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously it's connected to the to the southern border and the crisis that we have over there, but that's a federal issue. But I understand that because of that border crisis, communities across the country, including here in Wisconsin, we're seeing the impacts.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
but that's
yeah.
obviously a federal issue. I'm a strong pro border security person.
I agree. Well, and especially, I mean, you look at the interstate system,
Yeah.
because that's one thing we were surprised when I was initially traveling for the U.S. Senate race, and we were up in Sawyer County, and just the amount of problems they had from fentanyl there.
Hmm.
But depending on, if you're next to a major highway or an interstate,
Hmm.
that's just those corridors to help transport this, and it really is. I mean, it was heartbreaking to see and hear about the number of young people just from that area that they told the story of one young man. I mean, and I'm just in general here to give you the idea that I think he had some kind of surgery, and then he ran out of his pain medicine. So I think he ordered online or something like that to get uh, a refill on the weekend, and it ended up being laced. And I can't remember if he passed away or if he just got very ill. But I mean, just hearing how easily those things can happen, it was very scary. And it is, it's, it just doesn't make sense that we leave our border completely wide open.
Yeah, yeah, it's shocking. I've heard various horror stories about people being impacted by the dangerous drugs and all the horror at the border, the trafficking, the drug trafficking, human trafficking. So um, obviously, I'm gonna ask you about some federal issues also, because we have some important races coming up. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But going back to your campaign,
Mhm.
so tell me what kind of activities and events you're doing as you campaign.
Sure. So the most time consuming so far has been going to the municipal board meetings. But I mean, that's brought me so much information. It's given me some really great connections because I place such an emphasis on having those strong intergovernmental relationships so that we can, like I said, make sure that we're doing the best for our communities as a team. But then also, any of the community festivals that are going on, trying to attend those. And I mean, I've grown up in the area. I've been in the Coulee region for 30 years, and just with all the different groups and whatever else I've been involved with, our churches in La Crosse County, I always run into people that I know. So yeah, getting to all those festivals, I'm excited about some of the ones I've never been to because I hear just some neat, unique things. Getting into the parades, and then I will be. My staff will start on Monday, so I'm sure they'll bring up a lot of other things. But we'll be visiting, like with the Farm Bureau, those types of organizations. I've talked to all of the sheriffs, all four of the sheriffs at some point. So I'd like to find meetings. I'm on the law enforcement committee for Trumpealeau County, so I have a really good handle as to what's going on there. But again, making more of those connections with local governments just to get a really good understanding for what goes on in all of the area.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And just being out and about at the parades, for example, it's just so important because you have to be visible as a candidate. And now is actually the perfect time. The 4th of July parades happened, and there will probably be more events over the summer. So it's an exciting time.
Yeah.
Uh,
And we're also gonna, I didn't mention, but we're also focusing on, people that are like-minded, that want to get just a small group together, like a few family members or a few friends, and have those, more candid type conversations. But it is interesting. Anyone I talk to about that, they say, "Oh, I can get 30 to 40 people there." So, all right, do that. We'll plan a couple of hours. We can have a good conversation.
yeah. Well, that means people are paying attention, and people are trying to find out who's on the ballot, and what different candidates have to offer. So it's always wonderful. Now let me ask you about challenges. um, you know every campaign has challenges, different challenges. So what are some of the challenges you are encountering as you campaign in the district?
Well, the first one would be just being newer to this type of race, not having name recognition yet. But I think the work that we did during the U.S. Senate race is really paying off. We built a really
Mhm.
good network through that. I did a lot of traveling, so we've got support throughout the whole entire state, which is interesting because that translates into people reaching out to this area, the people that they know. But beyond the name recognition, of course, we've got to do the fundraising, the things that are going to help us get the ads on TV. I'm going to work my tail off to make sure that I'm meeting as many people in person as possible. But you can only do so much of that. You've got to sleep at some time. And
Yeah.
catch up
Yeah.
but one challenge, and it's not specific to my race, but one thing that irks me is I'm used to working in the nonpartisan world. So when I would door knock for that, I wasn't labeled as either party. So you could have really good conversations. And sometimes it's just disappointing, the people that'll see the letter behind your name and then just automatically make assumptions,
Mm.
and not realize that 80-90% of what's passed at the state level is bipartisan. We're going to find areas that we agree, and if we don't completely agree, we can find compromise. So I tend to be a natural mediator. A lot of times I can bring people around so we can have conversation, but you still run into those that just won't even look at you because you've got that letter behind your name. And it's unfortunate because, like I keep going back to, the more I study Senator Papp's voting record, the more I feel that he has voted uh, against Western Wisconsin too many times, and I would be much more in line with the people of this district.
Absolutely. You highlighted an important point that it's important to find common ground and get things done. Um, but obviously, you have your principles, you have your values, you have your priorities, and so uh, you know. Obviously, wishing you all the best as you continue campaigning, and hopefully you can overcome the challenges. But I've got more questions for you. Obviously, I'm going to ask you about something very important that just happened in Wisconsin. It's something that makes me very concerned, and I have written a letter to the editor, which was just published, because it's a ruling by the Wisconsin Supreme Court that
Mhm.
makes me as a voter very, very concerned. So it's about the absentee ballot drop box. So the Wisconsin Supreme Court ruled to allow absentee ballot drop boxes in Wisconsin. As a voter, I am concerned about it. I don't agree with this ruling, but I want to hear your thoughts
Mhm.
about this ruling and how you think this might impact the election.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we knew this was going to happen after Justice Protasiewicz was elected. I mean, she was very vocal about many issues that we knew that this was going to be the direction that they would go. Um, One thing that was mentioned, because sometimes I will go online just to see the conversations and get a better
Mhm.
understanding as to what people are saying. And someone mentioned, that these are just like, a mailbox that someone can just drop it in and it gets mailed, to the clerk's office. That's a different perspective. but it makes me think about how we've been really pushing to make sure that we have poll workers, poll watchers, even if there's clerks up for reelection, that there's some questions there that people want to get more involved. We need to make sure that we have people at all the checkpoints. If we're that concerned about it, the ballot drop boxes do concern me, just because, like they said, they're unmanned. Anything can happen. We spoke to a gentleman down in the Milwaukee area that owns an apartment building. Normally, the residency is about 25, 26 people at any time, but when he looked it up, there was 100 people registered for that address, and it's near one of the colleges. So of course you're going to have the influx, of people moving in and out. But you can see where fraud could really happen, and this is just another contributing factor. So anyone that's concerned, if you're not a poll worker, that I think the timeline, the deadline for that has probably already passed. But go be a poll watcher, do something, and make sure you know that the rules and the law. So that I remember hearing somebody testify after 2020 that they were a poll watcher, but they weren't allowed to get within the legal footage of watching what was actually going on. So know what your rights are beyond that, and then get involved.
Yeah. Yeah. Election integrity is important. And so there will be lots of comments and thoughts shared about this ruling, I think, going forward. I obviously, as I mentioned, I'm very, very concerned because I want elections to be fair and impartial and free from any possible fraudulent activity. So I'm concerned, and obviously we can spend an hour easily talking about the Wisconsin Supreme Court, but we're not
Yeah.
going to do it at this live stream here. Let me talk about the the national convention that's coming up.
Mhm.
Obviously, it's a major, very big event that's going to be happening here in Wisconsin. So, as a Republican running for state senate in Wisconsin, tell us how you are feeling about the RNC coming here.
It's exciting, and I'm really excited for the delegates that were selected through all the congressional caucuses. So I know there's a lot of people that have been devoted to conservatism and the Republican Party for so long, and this is like a dream to them. And I come into it a little. I guess more of a newbie. I confession, I grew up as a Democrat, and then when I got into my 20s, after I graduated college, I took a good hard look at just the basic differences between the parties, and I realized that my values and morals, I align much more on the conservative side, and so it hasn't been something that I've watched maybe the way so many others have for years and years. But it's very exciting that we're hosting, and then just the attention for the Midwest, because then you also have the Democrat National Convention coming into Chicago, right? So there's a lot of attention on the Midwest, and it's going to be great for the city of Milwaukee. I can't remember the number I read that the just the money that's going to come in for the city. So I think it's great to be able to highlight the great state that we have here, and then Milwaukee itself too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really exciting. And all eyes on Wisconsin, as many people say, as we approach 2024 November. So, will you be attending the convention? Do you plan to go?
No, I didn't try to be a delegate. I knew with the race that I wanted to focus my time and energy on the district. It's also the weekend of our hometown festival here, so there's traditions here that I was looking forward to upholding, and I I look, like I said, I just really look forward to the people that that worked really hard to become a delegate and can be there and represent us.
Yeah, yeah. I know several delegates and alternates who are very, very excited, and they're waiting for next week. Now, let me ask you another question. You're a Republican, you're a conservative, you're running for office in Western Wisconsin. You're going to be on the ballot this November. and Wisconsin is a battleground state, so every vote matters. So, what message or advice would you give the RNC chairman and co-chair for winning Wisconsin? If you had some advice, some message for RNC, the leadership there, that hey, this is what you need to do in Wisconsin to win Wisconsin. So, what advice would you have, and what do you think is the recipe for success in our state?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is bringing all of the conservatives together, especially since COVID. We've seen, groups kind of split off. I've heard a lot of people, not, I mean, a lot of people, but I mean, I guess relatively speaking, you hear enough people say that they consider themselves to be conservatives, but not necessarily Republican. But then where does that leave them? Because at this point in time, we only have two major parties. So if you're conservative, and we talk about too that it's a big tent party, that we all tend to have the same general beliefs with some slight variations here or there. So at the top, in order to bring everyone together, that we need to show up to vote, because I really do believe we have the conservative numbers. It's just getting all of the Christians, the hunters, all the people that tend to sit home, get them out to vote. And so bridging that gap between the party itself and then those who have drifted away from I guess they'll refer to it as the establishment, whatever
Mhm.
else. And then also uh, getting people out to vote, making sure they realize how important it is. And I know that the ballot drop box issue is going to be tough, because I think that's probably going to steer some people to believe that their vote's not going to count. But we have to realize that, like I said, we have the numbers. We just have to get people out to vote, and then just have so many that even maybe if they do pad the ballot boxes or whatever does happen in the future, then we don't have to worry about it.
Now we're gonna talk a little bit about the races at the national level, federal, I should say, federal races. We have the U.S. Senate race here in Wisconsin, and it is so important because it's an opportunity for Republicans to regain majority in the U.S. Senate. Um, do you think that we can win the U.S. Senate race in Wisconsin? Can Eric Hovde defeat Tammy Baldwin?
I think it is possible. Again, it has to do with the messaging and making sure that people are aware of Senator Baldwin's voting record. She's considered to be one of the most liberal senators that we have in our federal government, and I know she does very well with. Uh, she's bringing money back. She started at the county level, so she works well with the local governments. But when it comes to some of these more, I guess, contentious issues, kind of like I mentioned before, she tends to be on the very liberal side. So uh, that's like I was talking about earlier. One of the areas I really struggle with is the lack of civics education in our country, because, and that's it has it been done on purpose? Because now we have so many uninformed voters. They hear a snippet of something on TV and take it as gospel, and then that's how they go and vote, and don't realize the impact that that has on their everyday life. So encouraging people to look up Tammy Baldwin's record. Um, Eric Howdy he's done some amazing things. If you take some time to learn about him, they talk about the Hovde houses, where they have multiple houses in other countries, and they rescue kids, whether it's from sex trafficking or being orphaned, and just he has a large heart. And of course, I know the commercials and whatever else are going to hit, and lie and do other things. But um, I guess people also need to look at Tammy Baldwin's alignment with Joe Biden. With
Hmm.
um, she's been lockstep with this open border. People are upset, billions of dollars being sent to other countries where, like I said, we can hardly afford to live. So if people can step away from those little snippets on TV or social media, whatever else, and actually do their own digging and research, you can look up anybody's record. You can look up legislation. You can go read it all if you want to. And I think people uh, there'll be a lot of people surprised if they really take the time to do that and realize that putting a successful businessman like Eric Hovey into office is going to be a much better step for not only for Wisconsin but for the whole country.
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to Republicans uh, retaining the majority in the House, and in fact growing the majority in the House, because right now our House majority, I mean, that margin is very, very slim.
Mhm.
And if we can grow the House majority, if we can win the majority in the U.S. Senate, which, the race here in Wisconsin is going to be a major factor. If we win this race, if we can defeat Tammy Baldwin, then it's going to be great. And, for our House majority. And there are some other Senate races also, I think, that where we have an opportunity to win. So it's going to be so important. But then we also have to win the race for the White House. So let me ask you, do you think Trump can win Wisconsin as he did in 2016?
Uh, I definitely see out there where people are starting to connect their daily living with what's going on at the federal level. Of course,
Hmm.
enforcement, the open border is just it's terrible because they see it on a much more regular basis than we do with what's going on. But yeah, I think there's a good chance that Trump could win Wisconsin. I'm curious to see going forward what's going to happen with President Biden. He won all the primaries. And then are the Democrats going to select somebody else to put on the ballot? Are they going to disenfranchise all of those voters? Here in Wisconsin, once you're on the ballot, you're not off until you die. So uh, there's a lot going on there that I think is pushing things in the direction towards Trump potentially winning our state.
Yeah. And it's just it's I'm watching all these news updates every day. More and more Democrats trying to walk away from Biden, it seems. And I think now people are also closely watching the Hollywood celebrities, those who raise funds for Biden, and trying to figure out, okay, which celebrities are now going to walk away and say, hey Joe, you got to go, give it to someone else. So it's
Mhm.
just, I'm paying close attention to that. And what's going to happen tomorrow, day after? Is it really going to be Biden at the top of the ticket? Is it going to be somebody else? We're just going to wait and see. But I'm hoping Trump wins Wisconsin as he did in 2016. And who do you think Trump's VP pick will be?
I have no idea. Yeah, that's one of those questions where I just don't know. I think of some of the names thrown around like JD Vance. And I'm sure you've read his story, just hillbilly elegy, just absolutely incredible what he's come from. But he would be a necessary vote in the or voice in the Senate. So we would need somebody like that there. So honestly, I do not know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I have discussed that quite a bit. I think for the past couple months, I have done different podcast episodes and live streams where I have discussed different names and the pros and cons of picking this person versus that person. But I so finally I think I've arrived at a decision, and I put it in writing because I wrote a letter to the editor just saying who I think should be the VP pick, and I sent it out, and New York Daily News published it, and I said Tim Scott. So
Uh,
that's the name I finally arrived at. I
mhm,
think he's going to be a great VP. But
mhm.
do you like? Is there somebody who you would like to see? Is there?
I mean, there are things I like about Tim Scott. So yeah, and I mean, and you wonder what kind of strategy he's going to play as far as who he picks uh, for for VP as well. And for some reason the name is escaping me. Were you at the RPW convention?
I
Uh,
was at the convention. Byron Donalds.
yes, yes, thank you.
He
Yeah.
came and spoke. That was a great speech.
Yes, yes, his speech was really great. Yeah, I don't know if he's still in the running or not. I mean, it's one of those things where I've just been so focused on the race I'm running, and I catch little tidbits here or there, but I just
Yeah.
haven't delved much into this topic, and I figure it's one of those where we could speculate all we want, but it sounds like is he probably going to announce at the RNC convent or the?
Um, I think so. Like, I think I've seen reports that the announcement will come next week.
Mhm.
I can't cite the source, maybe some news report, but
Sure.
different people have discussed different short lists over the last few months. Like, okay, these are the 6 names, and then these are the 3 names.
Mhm.
And if you have paid attention, you'd see that names have gone in and out. So now there's a short list, I think, that's being discussed, like, Marco Rubio, and then JD Vance, and then um, Doug Burgum. I think some people say Glenn Youngkin.
Yep.
Um, but then I think you never know. It could be somebody in the short list or somebody that we're not even thinking about.
Mhm.
I
Yep.
don't think there's a way to predict, but
Yep.
I after all the discussion that I've done on this channel, I thought, well, you know what? We're approaching the convention. The announcement's going to come anytime. So let me just finally arrive at a decision. I think it should be Tim Scott.
Yep.
But I have a lot of confidence in Donald Trump. I think whoever he's going to pick is going to be a great choice. So that's
Mhm.
that's really my thought.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so let me ask you, if people want to get in touch with you, obviously you need a lot of support because running a state senate campaign, especially if you're not an incumbent, there are challenges that we discussed that you'd have to overcome, getting out and about, and you can't do it all by yourself. You need volunteers. So um, for the viewers who are watching, if they want to get in touch with you, if they are interested to volunteer or get to know more about your campaign, how can they get in touch with you? What's your website? Are you on Facebook? I know you're on Facebook, but I'll let you mention all that.
Yeah, so the website is staceyforwisconsin.com, and that's STACEYFOR, and then spell it wisconsin.com. So they can reach out that way. Also, Facebook, Instagram, X, Stacey for Wisconsin. I'm very active on Facebook and Instagram. Yep, and not so much on X. I'm sure, I'll probably start putting more on there. But I like to just let people know where I'm visiting, and then it's kind of fun if people are from those towns or whatever and they reach out to me. But those are the easiest ways to get a hold of me. Then yeah, we will be looking for people if they want to help, whether it's door knocking or, like I said, if you just know a few people that you'd like to get together and we can sit down and have coffee or go somewhere, have a couple of drinks or whatever, and it's just the smaller group and conversation. We can arrange a time like that. That would help tremendously. But we're going to have room for everybody that wants to help in some way.
Mhm.
And I've been really over not I guess overwhelmed and pleased with the number of people who have been offering to help already. We've got our t-shirts for parades. So just it's fun to see the people that want to support a cause like this, and it just makes me want to work harder and do that much more to help push us across the finish line. And like I said, get a senator for Western Wisconsin that's actually going to vote for the people of Western Wisconsin.
Absolutely. Um, so thank you, Stacy, for your time and for joining the live stream, for answering all the questions, for letting us know more about your campaign and the activities that you're doing, the events that you're going to, and your goals and priorities. And you really highlighted the importance of communication, as I already mentioned. You want to be an elected official in the state Senate who responds to those letters, who responds to those phone calls, and that's very, very important. So, and obviously your experience being an elected official at the county level, that's also valuable experience that you can take with you in the state senate. Um, so thank you for sharing all of that, and obviously your website, staceyforwisconsin.com, right? Did I
Yep.
get that right?
Yep. That
Okay. So if people want to get in touch with you, they can. I would encourage people to go to the website and learn more about Stacy's campaign. So, Stacy, thank you once again, and I wish you all the very best as you're running for Wisconsin State Senate District 32. So, thank you for taking the time to be on my show today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. All right. Wish you all the best.
All
We'll
right,
we'll, we'll talk soon. Thank you. Bye bye.
take care.